moves around. So, but again, you can follow that with the movement of your hand. Because you can move different parts of your hand differently, right? And follow the movement of that diaphragm. And again, not all the time, but a lot of times you'll feel it you feel that wobbling build up, and then it stops and it releases. Okay. So that's the hand position for the diaphragm. The one thing to watch out for is make sure you put your hands in such a way that the upper hand, the thumb, goes up. For obvious reasons, okay? If you put it like this, yeah, it makes people uncomfortable. So that's the respiratory diaphragm, or the pelvic diaphragm. The next diaphragm up is the respiratory diaphragm. And if you look at the diagrams, it starts along these ribs here, and it kind of domes up, but it goes down, and a lot of the diaphragms go clear down as far as L2, right? So that's quite a bit lower than here. So the proper hand position for respiratory diaphragm is I put my posterior hand kind of where the small of the back comes up, and then it starts into the lumbar kyphosis. Then you put your hand right there, and my other hand I generally spread out so I'm in contact with the costal margin as wide as I can get. So that's usually my hand position. Alternatively, you can do it this way too. But generally, if you look at my hands, you see the anterior hand is more superior than the posterior hand because of the way the diaphragm curves up and drops down. Okay. So now the interesting thing about the diaphragm is the fibers in it sort of crisscross sometimes down here in the back, and the esophagus goes down through there. The inferior vena cava, the abdominal aorta, goes through holes in the diaphragm. There's something else that goes through a hole in the diaphragm too. This is something we don't think of very much. The long thoracic duct. What's in that? What does that do? Yeah, that drains the lymph for the whole bottom half of the body. So what do you think happens if that's squeezed by some tension in the diaphragm? Yeah, you get a lot of stasis and things backed up in the lower half of the body. So, but that's how you usually do a respiratory diaphragm. And then again, you can start beaming energy, or you can put little test motions in to see how the diaphragm moves, and you just follow it. And if you need to, you can do each hemidiaphragm separately. Okay? Because this is a big organ. This is respiratory diaphragm is huge, right? And so if it seems overwhelming to do the whole thing at once, try it with half and then the other half. Okay? So then the next diaphragm up from there is the diaphragm across here, and it's not a technical diaphragm like the respiratory diaphragm, but this the pleura goes up and becomes horizontal and goes back down on the tops of both lungs. And then also this area here is what's called a thoracic outlet or thoracic inlet, depending which direction you're going. It's the same thing. But what goes through this thoracic outlet here?
The braces?
No. Brachial plexus is out over here. What goes?
The vessels that are going up in the neck.
Yep, so the carotids come up, the jugular is going down, right? What else?
Trachea.
Yeah, your windpipe is right here, trachea. What's behind the trachea? Esophagus. And so it's a pretty busy place. And of course the spinal cord's right there, but then you also have your sympathetic tracts going down that are outside the spinal cord, and they go down into a lot of ganglia that run alongside the spinal cord down this way on either side. So they go down through here. So vagus nerve, but also the lymphatic drainage of the head has to go through this opening too. So the thoracic outlet, some people teach you have to release the thoracic outlet every time before you work on the head. I kind of teach there's no absolutes like that. Just listen to the body again. But you find you commonly are releasing the thoracic outlet before you get up and work on your hands. So how I do that is, if you feel in the back of your neck, the most prominent posterior process is generally C7 or T1 in that region. So I generally put my hand so that those posterior processes are cradled in the crease of my hand, so like that. And then this hand, I'll take my thumb and my middle finger, and I start on the clavicle, and I just go out until it lays down like that. Okay? So usually my middle finger's below the clavicle, my index finger's above the clavicle, and my thumb's on this other clavicle. And then again, just intend through and unwind.
Can you just repeat that again?
Okay. So my anterior hand, I just put my thumb and middle finger on the sternoclavicular joints and just follow the clavicles out until my hand lays down flat on the manubrium and the sternum. And then I connect up with the back hand. It's like this. Okay? So let's do those 3 diaphragms and see how we're doing with time by the time we're done with those 3 diaphragms. What time is it? Okay, I think we can hopefully get through those 3 before lunch. Now just practice the direction of energy at the same time. And
What were you calling the high